Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News Channel. If you like my content, please like and subscribe and hit that bell notifications button and join me for live streams every morning and every night at 9 to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time for my late stream, sometime between 10 a.m. and noon Central Standard Time for my morning stream. So this is going to be an explanation of why you should buy Bitcoin over altcoins right now. And we're gonna look at XRP and VET specifically because those are the two altcoins that we talk about the most on this channel. But this can apply to any altcoin. There are very few altcoins that have actually performed well against Bitcoin over the course of this year. I think the only two in the top 15 are basically Huobi token and Binance coin, and those are both exchange tokens. Now, Huobi token might actually be in for another pump because Binance is going to shut off for U.S. customers, so Huobi US might actually take over some of those. Binance coin, I know they released a new stablecoin, but they're going to suffer a volume loss because they have to close off for U.S. customers, and Binance.US does not actually come online probably until end of October, so they might actually have a price like going down in price. But besides those two tokens, every other token, even though at some point in time, some of these tokens have been above Bitcoin in terms of performance, over the course of the year, they are down significantly when compared to Bitcoin in terms of performance. And I think that's likely to continue. If you look at XRP or VET, you can see that XRP ratio from the beginning of the year, the 1 year actually goes out to Q4 last year, but you can see from the beginning of the year, which is around here, it's basically gone straight down. And for VET, you can see some of the same story. Not 1 day, but 1 year. Like for VET, you can actually see some of the same story from the beginning of the year. I mean, beginning of the year, at VET, we were at 100 Satoshis. Now we're at 30. XRP at the beginning of the year, we were near at 10,000 Satoshis. Now we're at 2,000. So both of them have dropped significantly. We do know that there are developments and there is utility for both these coins. We know that VET has the partnership with Walmart, and Walmart's planning to onboard 10 more product lines onto VET within the next 6 months. So we have a time frame for that. So they will actually onboard 10 more product lines. They also have the partnership with PICC. We know that XRP, that Qatar has said they will actually implement XRP into MoneyTap sometime for cross-border remittances, not for domestic payments, but for remittances. And that should pump up the price for XRapid. But Garlinghouse also said that by the end of 2020, we should see $1 billion worth of volume for XRapid. I don't know if he means total or daily. A lot of people actually think he means total. Even if it's daily, that's growth for like another year and a half out. And we're really talking about the next 3 or 4 months in terms of investment. I'm not talking about 5 or 6 years out. A lot of stuff can happen in that projection. I'm talking about in the midterm 3 to 4 months. And the midterm 3 to 4 months, you should really be looking at the here and now and not future projections because things aren't really going to change in the next 3 or 4 months. If you really look at it, a lot of the news FOMO for some of the larger coins has actually died off. People are willing to maybe FOMO 5-10% on news. They're not really willing to FOMO some more. And over the course, like that 5 or 10% always gets dropped down. So you're looking at pure utilization value almost if you're really want a run up against Bitcoin. And that's very unlikely to happen for any coin, and that includes XRP or VET. And there's several reasons. Like notice how when Qatar or Walmart, they say it's always, we will do this, we will do that. Not we have done this already, or we have done this already. It's always will. For VET, we have a timeline of 6 months. I'm going to guess a lot of it's going to be in the second half of the 6 months. So up until like beginning of December or maybe even end of December, you might not see too much positive movement in VeChain that's sustained. Now, you might get some pumps because of the conferences and stuff, but I don't think that's actually going to be sustained. And I think Bitcoin, because of its halving and because all the institutional investments are actually in Bitcoin, not in VET or XRP, it's definitely going to go up first. So I do actually expect VeChain ratio to deteriorate even more. Same thing with XRP, by the way. I do expect both their BTC ratios to deteriorate even more throughout Q3 as we get into Q4. I know a lot of you are excited about the MoneyGram price, but as we've seen, the MoneyGram stock price has very little to do with the XRP price. So right now, doesn't really look like that's going to spur up anytime soon. And for VET, yes, they're going to onboard all those products, but we don't really know how many transactions per day that's actually going to produce. We're guessing it's significantly more, but we don't really know. And we don't really know how many of their other partnerships are going to come on board. We also don't know how that will actually affect the ecosystem. Is VeChain just going to increase the number of VET generated? VeThor generated by each VET, or are they going to make each transaction cost less? We don't really know how the ecosystem plays, so there's a lot of variables in there. So I think in the next 4 months or so, you're not going to see a giant, massive price leap for VET, and you might actually see that for BTC as we go towards the halving. And plus, if you just look at the graph like we've had right now, it's completely down right now. And I do think it's actually going to deteriorate even further because VeChain also has a big liquidity problem when Binance turns off for the United States. Yes, you can atomic swap with Atomic Wallet, but the issue with that is I don't think everyone knows. And I think a lot of the Binance people are just going to dump, especially through the mid next week. I do expect the ratio to go down even further. And I don't really expect, if it doesn't go down even further, I don't expect a great bounce back up. I would look past September 12th for any kind of VET, BTC recovery, if it even happens. But BTC, I think, is the most solid gainer for the next couple of months because all the investment money is going into BTC. They're not going into anything else. And when Katal says we will use XRP, we don't really know when he's going to implement that. He said he was thinking about it in January or February. He hasn't really moved on that yet, and it's only going to be for remittances or cross-border payments, not really for domestic payments, which is what most of that consortium actually does. I'm sure there's some significant volume for remittance payments, but that might not get implemented for the next year or so because we don't. I mean, he hasn't really given us a timeline for that. I know they're kind of beta testing something for one of their stores within their own office, but they got a long way to go, and I don't think towards the end of the year you're really going to see utilization suddenly kick up. Plus, if you really look at utilization, not just like theoretical use cases for the future, but if you actually look at utilization right now, Bitcoin's got everything beat very, very handedly. I mean, you're looking at $1 billion a year in BitPay. That's only BitPay out of many processors. And one of the exchange CEOs says he thinks that Bitcoin's utility is about 10% of its volume. And that's not 10% of CMC volume. CMC includes all the fake volume. If you look at open market cap, they kind of disregard or they guess like what the fake volume is, and they have about $1 billion per day for BTC volume. 10% of that, 100 million. So that means like roughly $100 million worth of Bitcoin is used for transactional purposes and not just for speculative purposes. That's not too hard to believe. Looking at like BitPay and some of the other processors that have given us some numbers on how much Bitcoin is actually being processed. So 100 million a day for Bitcoin is not that hard to believe. But if you take that and compare it to the other coins in terms of transactional value, it's way, way above. So for Bitcoin, some people say, oh, it doesn't have a use case. Yeah, that's great, but it actually has much more utilization than any other coin. Based on utilization alone, it's basically the only coin that'd be worth more than like 2 pennies if it was based on utilization alone. All of these others like XRP, VET right now, they really haven't hit a threshold where the utilization actually matters, and they'd be worth like less than a penny if you actually value them on just utilization. Now, Bitcoin's obviously not worth $10,000 if you base it on just utilization. There's obviously speculation there, but even if you just base it on just utilization, Bitcoin has a huge lead, and I don't see that huge lead deteriorating. If you really talk about remittances, like once Brazil actually got that thing passed where you can actually use cryptocurrencies for payments, the first thing anyone mentioned is, hey, now we can use Bitcoin for payments. Same thing for Venezuela and Argentina. People are actually talking about sending Bitcoins back for remittance payments, not anything else. And yes, that might change to XRP or XLM within the period of 3 or 4 years. That could definitely change, but it's not going to change in the next 4 months. And if you're looking at investments in the next 4 months, you have to invest on the here and now. You cannot invest on, theoretically, they could make huge strides in 2 or 3 years. No, what they do in 2 or 3 years is not going to matter from now until December, and people actually realize that. If there was some kind of news that would actually make the price really blow up from now until December for a lot of these altcoins, I think they would have started going up. This whole theory about Brad's magic flip switch that he can just turn on, or they've already chosen XRP, they're just waiting to make the announcement. I think that's complete bullcrap that has 0 evidence supporting it. and maybe even some negative evidence supporting it, because I don't think you can actually keep that information hidden for more than a year. I mean, it's been more than a year since these theories have started popping up. There's no way that you can get like insiders like bankers, hedge fund managers, and all those to not buy XRP if you've already chosen it for the world reserve currency. They would know, and they would find some way to funnel every single XRP that's available on the market into their own pockets. And the fact that they haven't, and no one's really buying it right now on the market to push the price up, means those theories are pretty much crap. I mean, I don't really believe in any of those theories. I don't really think anyone should believe in those theories, because the reality is, like, if any of those theories were true, everyone would be rushing to buy every last scrap of XRP in the financial field, and they're not. So that basically, for me, that sort of debunks like all those theories. So because those theories aren't true, and because Garlinghouse himself has said like $1 billion worth of volume, maybe total, maybe daily by the end of 2020, we don't know. I don't think we're going to see a big utilization jump for XRP. Now, you could depend on FOMO, but really what you're depending on FOMO is for Bitcoin to go up first. You're waiting for Bitcoin to actually go up first, and then the rest of the coins to follow, which means you have a chance to sell out after Bitcoin goes up before the rest of the altcoins go up. And we've seen that for a lot of altcoins. That's actually true the last cycle. Now, you can't say like historically Bitcoin does this and everything else follows, because you only have like one data point. That is not enough to extrapolate and say historically. Now, that's the only data point you have, so you might want to judge it on that, but you can't say like based on history, because there is very little history. You can't base it on one data point. And plus, the market is completely different this time. You have futures trading, which didn't exist last time. And you also you have futures trading and leverage trading and all those other things that people can pour their money in besides altcoins. So if you're based on utilization, I don't think anything will happen in the next 4 months. And because of that, if you're basing it on a FOMO, you might as well pour your money into Bitcoin first. And once you hit the top, spread out into altcoins. So I do really think the best play is to actually have at least 50, maybe even up to 70% of your money in Bitcoin. The other 30%, fine, you can invest in your favorite alt. And after Bitcoin goes up 20, 25,000, then you diversify back into the alts. Because your goal really, if you're not doing like super long-term investing, just hold until you die. If you're not doing that, your goal is not to be a fanboy of any one coin and like, oh, I must get as much of this coin as soon as possible. No. You're trying to get in at the best Bitcoin ratio. So if you buy Bitcoin right now and they drop Bitcoin ratio, if you buy in December when we're at a lower altcoin price, you can get a lot more of that coin. So you'll end up in a much better spot. This is the fallacy that everyone went for. Like, I started telling people to buy Bitcoin in June, but this is the fallacy that everyone went for. Like, oh, I can just buy so much of my favorite coin, I'll have more of the coin. But that's irrelevant, because if you bought Bitcoin in June and you decided to buy in your favorite alt until now, you can buy several times more what your favorite coin is than you could have in June. So you would have ended up better off, and you would have ended up with more whatever the hell your favorite coin is if you bought now rather than June. And I'm telling you that generally I don't think anything's going to happen with the alt market before December. The timeline's too short. I don't think there's going to be any amazing developments. They could have all the, like with VeChain and XRP, I think they can have all the amazing announcements they want, but if it doesn't have utilization, it's either going to be like it's going to be a flash pump and a flash dump, or it's not going to move at all. Because people right now don't have a great sentiment towards the alt market. They don't really believe in it. And I think that if you really try to invest in the alt market before Bitcoin right now, you're going to end up a lot worse. If you really look at it, like, people have been saying, oh, the prices will never be this low again. But the problem is, like, since they've started saying that, the prices dropped like 90% on alts. Now, it did drop about 85 on Bitcoin, but it's already recovered most of the way. If you bought in 10,000 Bitcoin during the 2017 highs, you would roughly have about 5,000 in terms of value right now. Whereas if you bought XRP at its all-time high, or in January, VET actually didn't spike in January. It actually spiked much later during its split, and it's kind of hard to calculate for VET. But for because it was VEN at its highest price, it wasn't actually VET. So the thing about with XRP, if you bought in at its highest price and you held on until now, believing that it's never going to be a higher price, you would have roughly like $700 right now. And that's 700 compared to the 5,000 you would have of Bitcoin. So you would actually need XRP to go up 7x while Bitcoin stood still right now to do just as well to do just as well as basically just buying Bitcoin and holding on all this time. So that's the big difference. It's not like will XRP outgain Bitcoin when a bull run comes? Is will XRP outgain Bitcoin plus all the other like all the losses you've incurred for holding XRP for that long? Will it outgain Bitcoin by 700%, 800%, 900%? Because that's what you're going to need to outgain Bitcoin by to even just break even for not selling into Bitcoin this entire time. And if XRP or VET drops to half from now until December, if it drops to half of the Bitcoin value right now, you're really asking, even from right now, can these coins outgain Bitcoin by 2 or 3 times to really even break even? And the thing is, if you buy Bitcoin right now and they do drop to that, which I think is fairly likely to happen, even if you sell out now with like 50% of what you have, you'll be able to buy back twice as much as you have right now. So if your goal is to increase your holdings over the next 3 to 4 months and get as much money as you can during the next bull run, think about actually just selling back into Bitcoin. I know there's that mental state. I suffer from it too, that like I don't want to sell out my alts at a loss, and that's not a good mental state. And I think I'm falling for that trap myself. But right now, I'm not really buying more alts with my Bitcoin. I'm just holding on to the Bitcoin so I can actually buy better alts later at a better price later on. So if you're looking to buy into cryptocurrency, I do think Bitcoin is a thing that you go for the next 3 or 4 months. After 3 or 4 months, and you look at the Bitcoin dominance, you look at like the market sentiments starting to change, news is starting to talk more about altcoins, maybe in December, beginning of December, maybe even late December, then that's when you actually buy alts, when Bitcoin has actually surpassed its last all-time high due to the halving. Because right now, I don't see an alt season in the next few months. We've seen Bitcoin go as high as 13,500, and alts didn't even go up at that point. So based on that, I just think Bitcoin actually needs to hit at least 17,000, 18,000 before any chance of an altcoin bull run. And that's why you should actually buy Bitcoin over altcoins for the next 4 months. And I think it's a better overall investment. Yes, there will be tokens like Huobi token, but unless you want to take a chance and just randomly guess, I think Bitcoin is the more solid option. All right, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you and have a nice day.